Weapons is written and directed by Zach Kreger, who previously wrote and directed 2022's Barbarian, which I liked a lot. He starred in 2007's The Whitest Kids You Know series, which I've seen a few episodes and clips. It always seems like it's really funny. The film stars Julia Garner, Josh Brolin, and Alden Ehrenreich, as well as Benedict Wong. If you've seen the trailers, the film appears ominous, creepy, and mysterious. This film is about, I'll initially avoid spoilers, except for what's already in the trailer, a third grade class that all gets up in the middle of the night at 2:17 a.m. and walks out of their homes and vanishes. The parents and town are eventually at a loss as to what happened. Nobody could figure out where they went. The children can't be found and the people want answers. With nobody else to blame, they decide to focus on the teacher of the class, Justine, who's played by Julia Garner. She gets threatened and insulted, but she has no idea what happened either. Before getting into spoilers, I'll say the movie is fun, it's surprisingly funny, and it's worth a watch. It's not as doom and gloom or ominous as the trailer makes it out to be. The trailer made it seem like it was a very serious, upsetting film. But it's an enjoyable film. I saw it at a sold-out IMAX theater, and the crowd was really into it. They were laughing all at once at various times, even clapping at the end. For me, I was looking forward to the more serious tone of the trailer, a horror mystery type film. I loved Barbarian when it came out, but the ending was disappointing because it seemed to abandon the tone that the film had established throughout the whole running time until that end. It became a little too cheesy at the end for me. I still enjoyed the journey up to the end, so overall I like Barbarian. Here, much of the movie takes itself seriously, but there seems to be a concerted effort to inject humor to perhaps keep the mood light. It did this throughout the whole film, so it didn't feel like a tonal shift like Barbarian. They did it on purpose this time, the whole time. So while it wasn't what I was expecting, it's still a good film. It's a good time. It's just not the epic best horror film of the year type of thing. That still goes to Bring Her Back for now, or maybe even Together. I love those two. But I still like Weapons, and it's still good. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's good and interesting the whole time, but the constant need for laughs, it's almost like the MCU'd it up in a way. It just keeps it just under that 8 out of 10 for me. It's still really good, but it's just lacking that kind of seriousness I was looking forward to. So that's the non-spoiler part. I'm going to talk a little bit about some spoilers, starting now. So some things I liked. I liked that the villain character, Gladys, used magic, or something like magic anyway, to capture the kids and everyone else she, captured or killed, or had killed. It was just different enough from the usual that I found it interesting. I also appreciate the film didn't try to go into detail about what type of magic or spells she was doing. They didn't have a scene where a character Skypes on his laptop a local, quote, magic expert who goes on to talk about how an ancient Celtic cult from the 12th century had sacrificed children to the gods to attain eternal life. So that could be what you're dealing with. No. They kept it vague enough that it made you, the viewer, have to create your own logic for how it works. Maybe it's based on something that's out there, but most people, including me, don't know about it. So I liked the way they handled that aspect. I liked the cinematography. There was no shaky cam or scenes that looked off color or too dark. I recently watched the movie called The Home, which was okay, but I was surprised by some of the camera quality at times. It looked noticeably like I told my wife even, like a direct-to-DVD film from 2002 or something. It looked, a couple times, the cinematography of that film looked really off and, I guess, cheap. None of that happens here. It looked perfect from beginning to end. I liked Paul the cop and James the druggie, those two characters. Their interactions were funny, but they could have been cut pretty much from the whole film. There's 2 chapters with them. it wouldn't have changed much. They appear at the end, as a spoiler, so, they appear at the end, but you could have just as easily put two random people there and it would have served the same purpose. But I liked those characters, so even though they were comical and their whole storylines were funny, at the end of the day, you could have cut them if you were trying to make it more serious or shorter. But at the end of the day, I liked them. Some things I didn't like. I didn't like how every gory or intense horror scene was pretty much a comedy scene at the same time. The audience was laughing in my theater every time there was gore or violence going on. When Benedict Wong's character Marcus is running around all bug-eyed and then attacking Justine and Archer, it was this strange mix of intensity and goofiness. If that was on purpose, I think Zach Cregger is creating his own unique spin on the horror genre. As I said, the end of Barbarian felt cheesy. I often say it turned into Evil Dead 2. It got silly just at the end and it didn't match the rest of the film. Here it never felt out of place because that's how pretty much every horror scene was treated. When Gladys is running from the children at the end, it almost felt like a live-action Looney Tunes for parts of it. When she's running and the guy mowing the lawn notices, she runs across between two houses and he's like, "Oh, what's that?" And then all of a sudden these kids are chasing her. It was super silly. Everyone laughed, but it's not what what I was looking for the main, end of the film. The climax of the year's biggest horror film, was a giant comedy scene. It's an interesting way of doing things as a filmmaker because I think it may, as we're already seeing from the box office, may reach a wider audience this way. I saw people of all ages, races, genders in this theater. I was surprised by some of the older people I saw there. Will regular horror fans like me keep going once we realize this guy, Zach Cregger, always has to put comedy in everything? I don't know. His next film is Resident Evil, so I don't know if he can do it as much in there. But Cregger started by writing and acting in comedy, so I get it. It makes sense that this is what he does. It'll be an interesting balancing act if he plans to make specifically horror films with super creepy and ominous tones, then sprinkle silly comedy in them. It's a new genre, sorta. He may be more like Sam Raimi than John Carpenter, but it's still early in his horror career. One thing that's true is that Zach Cregger, as a writer and director, is making very interesting films. That makes me look forward to seeing his future work. Alright, talk to you later.